For our Unit 4 review, it's a lot of vocabulary. So basically what I'm going to go through and do is I've listed out the most important vocabulary on the following slides. I'm going to go briefly over the descriptions, over the definitions for them, and that is what you need to be studying, in addition to what is on the study guide. So we first started talking about with the basics of biology is the idea of the regulation of salinity or as osmosis. And in our ocean environments, we know that we have a higher salt concentration in the environment compared to the cells, the organisms that are living in it. So there are two different types of regulations of salinity kind of mechanisms. So we have osmoconformers and osmoregulators. An osmoconformer is an organism that's internal salt concentration actually conforms to the salinity of their environment. So I've put a nice little picture of one of those organisms off to the side. And a bull shark is a prime example. Bull sharks, stingrays, other types of cartilaginous fish, as well as eels, all fall within this osmoconformer category. So these are organisms that basically have a higher salt concentration on the inside that matches the salt concentration on the outside. They hold on to large amounts of urea, which is that salty component of urine, and then they also have a protein that is super high in their bodies called TMAO. And that TMAO, in addition to the high amounts of urea, actually help to balance the salinity, thus resulting in less of a loss of water from these organism cells. Osmoregulators, on the other hand, would be other types of bony fish. So we see these reef fish as a prime example of that. And osmoregulators had a variety of different mechanisms in order to actually hold on to that excess water that they need within their bodies rather than losing it to their salty environment. So they do things like release less urine, and when they do release urine, it's very diluted, so it's a lot more urea than it is water. There are organisms who osmoregulate, like sea turtles, who are actually drinking the water in and releasing it through salty tear excretions around the eye. We saw a video of the Galapagos iguana, and the Galapagos iguana actually releases excess salt and excess sediment basically from its body by sneezing out this kind of salty water compound. So osmoconformers, just to review, they conform, hence the name, to the salinity of their environment, having a higher salt concentration on the inside as it relates to their environment. Osmoregulators have a variety of different mechanisms, things like drinking the seawater, things like releasing less or more diluted urine, less urine as a whole. Then we started going into our basics, so our biomolecules, and everybody has gone through these. These are our core four. So our carbohydrates, our lipids, our proteins, and our nucleic acids. The big one that you need to know is the lipids. So lipids alone are a source of long-term energy. They also provide us with insulation. This is so important for marine animals like this walrus or this penguin because those lipids are once again providing that insulation from their Arctic environments. It also, when we think about lipids, we are referring to fats and oils. So these fats are building up inside the body on top of the muscle and is actually insulating those organisms from that cold environment. Same thing with a penguin's feathers. So these are coated in a thick oil that basically kind of repels the water. It makes them a little bit more dynamic in the water. It also keeps them from holding on to that cold water, which then could possibly freeze on the feathers. So basically, it just kind of runs off the same way if you were trying to, if you put rain onto a waterproof jacket. So it would just kind of beat up and roll right off. Then we started talking about ecology, and this is where we ended up doing our project. So you needed to know some terms like biotic factors and abiotic factors. So our biotic factors, anything that is living in an ecosystem, and abiotic meaning anything that is non-living in an ecosystem. But our ecological zones, the ocean, the big ones that you need to know are our pelagic zones. So this is basically your water column. So anything that's surviving out in the open ocean will be referred to as a pelagic organism living in the pelagic zone. Anything that is benthic, think B for bottom, benthic for bottom, is anything that is living on the continental shelf or on the oceanic crust. So this would be things like our hydrothermal vent communities. These are benthic communities. Our coral reef communities are benthic communities. So anything that is actually sitting on that subsurface or the surface of an ocean environment. Intertidal zone is a benthic community. In regards to ecological organization, understand that we start with one individual. So say we have an individual, a single clownfish. Then we have a population of that one particular species. So a population of clownfish, more than one of that particular species inhabiting an area. Then we get a community where we have multiple species within an area. So maybe we have a clownfish, maybe we have a sea anemone, maybe we have a damselfish, maybe we have some type of coralline algae. This is a community of the coral reef. The ecosystem itself will be the coral reef ecosystem. The biome is the area on Earth, so maybe the Pacific Ocean or the Indian Ocean. So these are our biomes, and our biosphere is basically the area on Earth where life can be sustained. And then some remaining vocabulary that you do need to know. I've already gone over benthic and pelagic, just to review. Benthic organisms are organisms that survive on the bottom of the ocean, are bottom dwellers. So this would be things like our lobsters. Our pelagic organisms, like this pufferfish, would be organisms that swim in the water column. Then we divide that further down into plankton and nekton. Plankton come in two subcategories, so zooplankton and phytoplankton. So zooplankton are organisms that are consuming each other, so a heterotrophic plankton, so something that is not swimming on its own, it is at the mercy of the currents, it is eating other organisms for food. This would be things like a jellyfish and a copepod. A phytoplankton I did not include a picture of. These are organisms that are at the mercy of the currents and photosynthesize. So these would be things like our diatoms and our other types of unicellular algae.